Hi guys, thanks for joining me for another episode of Theory Crafting. So for this one, I'm going to talk about glyph usage for T2s and T3s. For T1s, it's a little bit more questionable just because there's so many things you can do with it, especially since the cooldown refreshes immediately after your T1 tower falls. You can use it to wait until your tower gets into deny range and then deny it afterwards after the opponent backs off. You can use it to scare your opponents off into a worse position if they back off into you. You can use it as soon as possible to prevent damage so that you can maybe get another use in before the tower dies. Pretty much there's a lot of uses for tier 1s, and that is less up for debate, or sorry, more up for debate, just because there's so many different things. For T2s and T3s, it's a little bit more straightforward, but not necessarily more so. Most of the time when you see professionals use it, as well as lesser players like myself, it's going to be to prevent as much damage on the tower as possible, which means using it early, using it often to buy yourself time. And let me give you an example from a Secret versus Cloud9 game. So Secret is pushing versus Cloud9, this T2 tower. Quap has a DD damage. I don't know why my health bars are all strange, but there's a lot of damage going out to the tower right now, and they glyph about when it's a little under half HP. And as you can see right now, Cloud9 is in no position to defend. They are just all taking over the opponent's jungle, maximizing their farm, and they want to use the glyph to buy themselves time. And a lot of people are of the notion that, okay, if a team is pushing the T2 and they might push a T3, why would you ever glyph the T3 over the T2? And I'm of the opposite. Like, why would you ever not glyph the T2 and glyph the T3 instead? Because if they push a T2 and then you glyph, and then they push a T3, you buy yourself 5 seconds of time. If they push a T2 and then they push a T3 and then you glyph, you still buy yourself 5 seconds of time. But what if they push a T2, you don't glyph, and then they back? You don't gain any sort of time, you don't get any usage out of your glyph, and you kind of waste a glyph cooldown. And there are some cases where you don't want to glyph the T2, but that's usually when they push a T2, they back, and then you expect another push to come before your glyph cooldown is up. And that's usually the case maybe when they have far superior map control to you, or when they have the Aegis of the Immortal, or when your split push is very, very weak and being able to push out lanes. But for the most part, if you expect a T2 to a T3 push consecutively within like 30 seconds time, you should almost always glyph the T2 to ensure that you're going to buy yourself 5 seconds whether or not they back. So look at Cloud9's reaction to this. They take down a tower, and then they want to see what Secret does after this. They'll see all of them move to the right immediately after his tower falls, and then they all start TPing back, as you can see. So they still plan on holding this T3, but they use the glyph early so that they can buy themselves 5 seconds of time whether or not they back. And what do you know? Secret back. So if they waited for this T3, they would have prevented 3 damage if they had used it, and if they would have prevented 3 damage if they use it. And if they didn't use it, then they're less at risk for a push in the next 4 or 5 minutes. But at the same time, they wouldn't have gotten that 5 seconds time. And most of the time, it's better to get that 5 seconds worth of time so you can get that extra tower or whatever it may be to hopefully make yourself stronger for that next push. Again, this is not a very clear-cut case of the optimal usage of glyph. There are some cases that are going to be better than others, but this is just a pretty good way to use glyph to prevent damage and buy yourself time, as opposed to use it when you're right about to defend. It's a pretty good mindset of when to use it with very minimal downsides, although there are some cases where you don't want to do it, but it's a pretty good basic rule of thumb, and I just wanted to provide an example for you so you don't have to take my word for it. You can see how other teams use it as well. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you picked up something. Again, for T1s, it's a little bit more questionable. Use your own judgment for that. For T2s and T3s, use it early so you can start the cooldown ASAP so you can get maximum glyph usage, as well as to buy yourself as much time as possible. Thank you guys for watching. Maximum efficiency will win you games. Take that message home too. Peace out, guys.